Hi, it's Jennifer with Astro T Astrology. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be talking about Pluto going retrograde on Sunday the 11th. So we're going to talk a little bit about what we've learned from Pluto kind of moving into Aquarius, and then it's going to be moving back into Capricorn, the sign it has been in for about the last 20 years. And we're going to reflect on that a little bit and see, what we went through and what we're about to be going through and what signs have been popping up with this little glimpse that Pluto had in Aquarius to see what, when it fully goes into Aquarius in 2025, what that is going to bring for the next 20 years after that. So we first start out with on that day, Mercury goes into Gemini on Sunday the 11th. So it's interesting that that is happening on the day that we can start reflecting about the things that we've learned, because Mercury is all about information processing, and Gemini is about getting all the knowledge that we can and processing it. Gemini really wants to know everything about everything. It really does digging. Pluto's about getting deep down and big, deep transformations. So with Mercury and Gemini, we can kind of look back, and it'll help us to kind of see the things that might have been the flags of what's going to be coming up for the next 20 years. So Mercury is the ruler of Gemini, so it's very happy there. It's in its dignity. It's good for, for all of us, for receiving information, processing information, distributing it back out. So, good for conversations, good for, teaching, and which is really nice. Next week I actually have a new trainee starting, and I'm going to be training her. So, Gemini, Mercury in Gemini, which is going to be falling in my 6th house of work, is actually going to work out perfect. So I'm going to really need that. So my house of work, Mercury's going into it, so I'm going to be able to explain the knowledge that I've gotten over all these years. So Gemini is about processing and gaining the knowledge, and then I can teach it to somebody else using, my Mercury as far as distributing it back out. This is going to, feel a little quick. Things are going to move a little bit faster. Things are going to feel faster because Gemini and Mercury are kind of fast moving. Mercury is a very fast moving planet, and it's, speeding up, and so things are going to just feel like they go by quickly. Maybe we're going to talk faster, kind of read a little bit faster, like, go through things, try to learn things a little bit faster, maybe pick up on things easier. So hopefully with my trainee, she'll pick up on things really quickly, because I really need her trained in a couple weeks. So hopefully that will be the case. So we're going again to think back. So this main reason of this video is to think back of what we've learned about Pluto's peak into Aquarius. We're going to process what we learned, and we're going to see over the next year what transformation we can expect. Are we going to have losses? Are we going to have personal transformations? What are we going to expect through this? So we're going to kind of go through the signs to see what this might hold for you coming up in the next 20 years. So you're going to look back into the last 20 years, and you're going to see now what changes, and when we find out what your rising sign is and where the Pluto was in your chart, we can see maybe what developed over the past 20 years, and then when it moves into Aquarius, what next part of your life is going to start being affected. So as you go through the chart, everything's kind of an evolution of the other. Even when you get to 12, that's not the culmination, because then the first house is almost like an evolution of that. So everything is about, the next sign is about growing, changing, learning from what the previous sign, and growing and learning what you can with the next sign you're going into. So first we're going to start with Aries. So we have the little dial starting with Aries. So if you have Aries rising, then you're going to have Pluto right now it's, you know, right at 0 degrees. It's barely moved into Aquarius at all, but it's going to be going retrograde. So you're going to have it in your 11th house, and it's going to be going back into your 10th house. So think about your 10th house. That's where Pluto has been for the last 20 years. So what in your life, maybe as far as your reputation, maybe as far as your career, what's developed in your life, good or bad? Because, you know, these are, depending on what signs and what planets you have in that, it still is your 10th house. Most likely it is around where your MC is going to be. It's the highest point in your chart, or the MC is. MC will be, you know, usually in the 10th house. Sometimes it'll be in the 9th or the 11th. But it's got similar kind of connotations where it's about your career, about your reputation, about what you grow to and try to work towards in your life. So that's kind of what was happening, and now the sneak peek is to what's going to be happening with Aquarius. So maybe Aquarius is about into your 11th house. It's going to be. So you think about your 11th house, and that's about groups. So maybe if it is career-based, you're building a team. So you have a good team building, you have a good group building with your team. Maybe you can look forward to that, really building that, you know, even if you have an online presence, maybe you're building that. The 11th house also has to do with like internet, like the World Wide Web type internet, where the 3rd house is more kind of like email and stuff like that. So it's kind of like bigger groups, kind of really getting yourself out there, really. So you go from just kind of building your reputation to really getting noticed and putting yourself out there in the world. It's about, you know, your big friends group, the people that you're close with, and that type of thing. So that's about the things, you know, think back, and that's about the things you should expect if you have Aries rising. So then if you have Taurus rising, it's going to put, so if you have, I'm not going to move all this around. So if you have Taurus rising, it's going to put Capricorn in your 9th house, and it's going to put Aquarius in your 10th house. So if you think about your 9th house, it's about learning. It's about, could be religion. It could be about travel. So maybe things that you've learned in your travel, so over the past 20 years, maybe you've done sabbaticals, like religious-wise, retreats. Maybe you've really done a lot of cramming with schooling and you know, college and higher learning. That's about more higher learning than the 3rd house. That's more about just kind of like, you know, elementary school type learning. And then that is, you're going to take this information that you learned from traveling, learning, going to school, you know, religious retreats maybe, and you're going to bring that into your 10th house of career. So career and reputation. So it just kind of shows how, you know, what have you been working towards? What have you been learning and, you know, trying to get all information that you're going to bring into the next stage in your life. So that's going to be Taurus rising. So those of you with Geminis on your ascendant, or rising or ascendant, whatever you want to call it, it's going to put Pluto, you know, going for the past 20 years in your 8th house, and going into your 9th house. So the 8th house is about, you know, inheritance, other people's money. It's about kind of those taboo subjects. So maybe you are growing out of that. Maybe you went through kind of a phase like that. Maybe you gained a lot of money from loss of a loved one, and you're going to use that to maybe, you know, in your the next 20 years, you're going to go travel. You're going to learn new things, maybe go back to school. So maybe, you know, you have earned a little bit here, gained a little bit of money, maybe, you know, or even if it's a bad part of it, maybe you had some tax issues, maybe you had some big debts. Now you're going to take that and you're going to learn, and you're going to use that to, you know, kind of better your future, kind of work towards learning how to deal with these things, learning how to deal with any financial issues you might have had, or anything to that effect. So that's going to be if you have Gemini on your ascendant. So if you have Cancer on your ascendant, that is going to put Capricorn in your 7th house, and then Aquarius in your 8th house. So 7th house is about, which would be about here. You can do Pluto either way, have both pictures. So it would be in your 7th house. I know that we have Scorpio here, but just ignore the signs for now and just pay attention to the house numbers as we're talking about it. So again, if you have Cancer on your ascendant, you're going to have Capricorn for the last 20 years in your 7th house. So maybe you got married, maybe you were in a partnership, maybe with a business partnership, or like a serious relationship, almost like marriage, maybe a, you know, a live-in type of relationship like that. Maybe you got serious. The 8th house is about, you know, other people's money, your spouse's money. So maybe you're going to join incomes, maybe, you know, again, the inheritance, maybe you might lose someone. And also it's about kind of marital sexual relations. So, you know, hopefully you have some good planets in there, so that will boost that. And hopefully it's in a good sign. So, you know, it all kind of works together. So you're going from, you know, just kind of getting married and that into your real future, your settled down married life and what that life is going to bring for you. So then we move on to Leo rising. So if you have Leo rising or Leo on your ascendant, it would put Capricorn in your 6th house. So that's where it's been for the last 20 years, moving into your 7th house. So the 6th house is about your everyday work, work routines, habits, and it's also about your health. So maybe if you've been battling some kind of a health issue over the past kind of 20 years, maybe you're going to kind of be overcoming that now. Maybe it's going to kind of work itself out, or you found ways to deal with it as you move into Aquarius. That's going to be in your 7th house. So moving into your 7th house, you're going to look forward to maybe a relationship, maybe a work relationship, maybe a partnership. So maybe in the time of your everyday work, which is your 6th house, moving into your 7th house, it's going to bring a partnership and maybe a building from that everyday work. You know, maybe there's somebody that you're going to partner up with and maybe start your own business, or go off on your own, or maybe you're going to meet someone at work and get married. Maybe there's someone special that, you know, you've been talking to, and who knows what. So, you know, just kind of look at what you've had the sneak peek of. If there's someone that kind of caught your fancy, or if there's some kind of, you know, business venture you're looking into, maybe in the last month or so, since Pluto's been in Aquarius, now's the time that it's retrograde to think back and say, okay, you know what, I noticed this, so maybe this is going to be happening, maybe this is what I want to work towards for the next 20 years. Because, you know, this is about developing yourself for the long term. It's about a transformation. Pluto is about, you know, big transformations, endings of the old, beginnings of the new. So no looking back, because all that is going to be gone and you're going to transform into the new you. So then we move on to Virgo. So if we have Virgo on the ascendant, that is going to put Capricorn in our 5th house and moving into our 6th house of Aquarius. So if you have Virgo, the themes that you might have been going through for the last maybe 20 years, maybe you've been big in the dating scene, maybe you've been, you know, out, you know, the 5th house is about having fun, it's about, you know, the fun things that you do, creativity, maybe you've been working on, you know, making your own jewelry line or painting or something to that effect. Maybe that you've been going through for the last 20 years is going to move into your 6th house, and it's going to become your everyday work and routine. So maybe, you know, if you've been, say, a painter, you're going to open maybe a gallery or work towards maybe really getting into selling your paintings. So your everyday routines. And on the negative side, you know, all this fun, you know, it's about, you know, premarital sex, dating. So hopefully that doesn't bring anything bad into your 6th house of health. 5th house also has to do with children. So, you know, of course, children, you know, going into your 6th house, that's raising them for the next 20 years, you know, and bringing them up. And trust me, it's doesn't end after 18. I have a 28 and a 27-year-old, and I still feel, you know, as much concern over them as I did the day they were born, because it just never goes away. So moving on, if you have a Libra in your ascendant, that will put Capricorn in your 4th house of house and home and family and upbringing, and then it will have your 5th house where Aquarius is where it's moving into and what you're going to look forward to for the next 20 years. So maybe you have been home with your family. Maybe, you know, we've had a lot going on with your family dynamics. It also concerns your mother. So maybe, you know, there's been issues around your mother that you've been dealing with for 20 years. Maybe it's just house and home. Maybe you've just bought a home. You've been saving to buy a home and you finally have. You know, what's been culminating over these past 20 years that you're going to then bring into your 5th house of creativity. So maybe you bought a home and now it's time to settle down and have children. And, you know, so on and so forth. So, you know, what's the next 20 years going to bring in your house of creativity, in your house of children, in your house of fun, of, you know, dating and all the fun things in life is what the 5th house represents. So if you have Libra rising, those are the kind of things to look back in the past: house, home, family, upbringing, and what are you moving towards for your 5th house creativity. So then if we move along to Scorpio, if you have Scorpio rising, you're going to have Capricorn in your 3rd house and then Aquarius in your 4th house. So the 3rd house is about, you know, kind of closer communications with acquaintances, maybe not like good friends, big groups, but more acquaintances. You know, maybe emails back and forth between like work people, you know, just kind of casual stuff like that. Also, it has to do with your siblings and lower age learning. So maybe over the past 20 years, you've been in, you know, regular school. Maybe you're young and maybe you're moving into going into the higher learning. So maybe, you know, or you've been, you know, working towards something, you know, maybe you and your siblings, and then it's going into your house and home. So what are you going to look for coming up next? Are you going to be buying a house? Are you going to be, you know, again, you know, the 4th house could have to do with mother. It has to do with parents in general, but mother more specifically, where the father is in the 10th house more specifically. But, you know, what in the 4th house could you be moving towards? It's more like your upbringing and what kind of morals, you know, so maybe you've been dealing with issues with your siblings, and maybe that's going to work itself out once you get into the 4th house. Once Pluto moves its way in there, maybe like all those bygones will be bygones and you'll be best friends. I know when me and my sister were young, we fought all the time, hated each other, and once we got away from each other and kind of got our own homes, got our own adult lives going, we became best friends. So always look for those positive changes as, you know, the planets change signs. So then if we have a Sagittarius as our ascendant, if we have Sagittarius on the ascendant, we have Capricorn in the 2nd house, and then we have Aquarius in the 3rd house. So 2nd house is about what we own, our money, you know, how we make money, and just the things that we buy and our possessions. Moving into the 3rd house, you know, is about, again, about close relationships. It's about, you know, short-term travel. So maybe with what you have and the money that you've been gaining, maybe you're going to be doing some little, you know, short stints of traveling. Maybe you buy an RV and you're just going to kind of drive around and live in that for a while, or who knows. But, you know, that's the things that the themes that you'll look forward to for the next 20 years that maybe you'll develop. Next, we're going to go, if you have Capricorn on the ascendant, so it would be Capricorn on the ascendant, and it's going to put Capricorn obviously in your 1st house because it's the ascendant, and then moving into your 2nd house. So if for the past 20 years maybe you've really changed your identity, maybe you know, you've really come out of your shell, maybe you've really started, you know, maybe doing things different, maybe really your outer appearance has changed over the past 20 years. Maybe you've had a lot of plastic surgery, or maybe you've, really, just kind of changed the way you are and the way that you relate to other people. Maybe you were shy, and that's kind of been coming out of your shell ever since then. So that's going to be moving into your second house of money and making money. So it's going to be bringing you out into the world, and maybe you're going to be making money off of the things that you've learned how to better yourself in your first house of yourself and your outward ways and appearance and what your ascendant. So maybe look to those themes, how you'll be making money in that way, maybe the things that you'll be buying, maybe the things that you'll accumulate. So then we move on to Aquarius in the first house. So obviously then that means that Pluto is going to be going from the 12th house into the first house. So the 12th house is kind of about being kind of secluded away. So maybe you've been really kind of like a recluse. Maybe you've been in jail. Maybe you've been in the hospital. Maybe you've had, stints in and out of prison for the last 20 years. Because the 12th house has to do with things you hide, maybe things that you're not, quite so, willing to put forth. So maybe, there is a shyness thing there. Maybe you've had some health issues, so you've been, kind of in the house, not wanting to go out, or forced to stay, bedridden for some reason. And then moving into your first house, maybe over the next 20 years that's going to change and you're really going to get out there. Maybe if you were in prison, or if you were, say, addicted to drugs, maybe you're getting off that now and you're going to use that to help people and encourage people to not go down the same path that you went down, because drugs and jail and things like that are themes that could happen in the 12th house. So moving into the first house is how you're going to use that knowledge to change, and maybe give that information and to other people to help them. So last but not least, we have Pisces, which is in the 11th house. And that's going to be moving into the 12th house. So the 11th house, again, like we talked about earlier, is about big groups, is our, if we're on the internet, it's about our internet, self and our, internet connections, or big group of friends, our, big outer family, just how you get out there, how you, can communicate, even via internet with people. So then that moves into the 12th house. So maybe if you were a little too out there, maybe if you were, a little too addicted to being online, I have to have the best Facebook, I have to have the best likes on all my pictures, or on Instagram, or whatever kids are doing these days, whatever the popular social media is, maybe that focus is going to kind of go by the wayside, and you're going to focus on maybe more important things. Oh, Pickle decided to come and say hi. So before we go, remember to look at your past over the past 20 years, see what's developed in the house that your Pluto is in, and where it's going to move, and what to look for, and what you can actively work on changing for the future and working towards in the house that's represented. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, or if you didn't like it, still subscribe. Why not? And if you did like it, hit the like button and hit the little notification bell so that you'll be notified of upcoming videos. So I hope you have a great weekend, and we'll see you Monday with a new video, and have a great time. Bye-bye.